แก่นวิทยายนนะคะ We would like to welcome คุณหมอรองศาสตราจารย์นายแพทย์สุภักดิ์ศรีนวัฒน์นะคะรองคณบดีฝ่ายวิทยาสัมพันธ์และยุทธศาสตร์ระหว่างประเทศนะคะคณะแพทยศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยขอนแก่นค่ะคุณหมอสุภักดิ์ค่ะสวัสดีด้วยนะคะแล้วก็รองศาสตราจารย์แพทย์หญิงสุธาสินีศรีนวัฒน์นะคะอาจารย์ภาควิชาจักษุวิทยาคณะแพทยศาสตร์มหาวิทยาลัยขอนแก่นค่ะนี่นะคะแล้วก็welcome Miss Stephanie Choi นะคะmedical student from Harvard University USA ค่ะ so I would like to give the microphone to คุณหมอพูดก่อนไหมคะทักทายเด็กๆก่อนเชิญค่ะคุณหมอคะเชิญค่ะสวัสดีครับลูกสวัสดีครับอาจารย์อู the director of English program of Catholic School teachers students of English program my name is Dr. Suภัkดิ์ ศรีนวัฒน์ I'm Associate Dean for International Affairs the Faculty of Medicine and now she's continuing her study in the School of Medicine at Harvard University as well. She's under 4th-year medical student at Harvard and she is undertaking the elective study at the Faculty of Medicine at Khon-Kaen University for 3 weeks. She's about to finish her elective study and return to the States this coming Wednesday. So today she is going to talk to you about how to apply to medical school in the States and how the medical study is at Harvard University. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Stephanie Choi. Stephanie Choi.
Standing is okay, I think. Wait, can you hear me without the mic? I use the mic? Okay, use it, okay. Okay, sure. Do you have the presentation as well?
Yes.
Okay.
You can show your presentation.
เข้ามาค่ะลูกเข้ามาทีหลังนั่งหน้าค่ะมาก่อนหน้าหลังค่ะทีหลังนั่งหน้าเชิญค่ะเฮียค่ะลูกเฮียทำเฮียมา
want to. Today I was asked to talk about medical education in the U.S., but if you guys have any questions about studying in America or undergraduate or medical school, I'm happy to answer any and all questions. You can stop me in the middle or we can save the questions for the end. And I'll try to talk a little bit slower. I think I usually talk a little bit quickly, so I will slow down a little bit. So let me just start. So this is pictures of Harvard Medical School. So on the left, this is one of the main academic buildings. A lot of the administrative offices are here. Our classes are in separate buildings. On the right here is a picture of Boston. So here you can see the skyline, and this is the famous Charles River. So the Charles River cuts through the middle of Boston. The Harvard undergraduate campus is on the one side with the law school and the business school, and the medical school is a 30-minute bus ride away from the undergrad campus because the medical school is near the hospitals. So this is a picture of Boston. And just a little bit about the history of Harvard Medical School. So it is actually the third oldest after University of Pennsylvania and Columbia. It was founded in the year 1782. In terms of faculty members, there are over 11,000 professors there. And each class, there's 4 years in medical school. Each class has 165 students per class, and 13 are ND PhD students, so they do 8 years because they do a PhD, and about 1/3 or 34% are Asian students. And currently the admittance rate is about 33.5%, but it gets lower every year. Okay, so a little bit more about me. So I was born in this red collar state called Iowa. Iowa is about 4 hours from Chicago. Chicago is located in this state here. It has a lot of cornfields. It's in the middle of the country. And my parents were from South Korea and they came to the U.S. So I was the first one in my family born in the U.S. So I'm a U.S. citizen. So I went to Harvard for undergraduate and I graduated in 2013. And I studied economics with a minor in chemistry. And then I'm now attending Harvard Medical School. I'm in my last year, and I'm going to be applying for ophthalmology, which is the eyes. Okay? So this is the pathway for medical school in the U.S. So right now, you guys are here in the high school phase. There's 4 years of high school in the U.S., and then you apply for undergraduate. So there's 4 years of undergraduate. College is also referred to as undergraduate. These are the same thing. And during this time, you will take pre-medical classes, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. After 4 years, you do 4 more years of medical school, so total 8 years. I know in Thailand it's 6 years right after high school, but in the US, they want you to do undergraduate first and then medical school, so 8 years total. And usually they call you by MS1 or MS2, depending on what number year you are for medical school. So after you finish medical school, you get your MD degree, and then you do 1 year of internship, and then 3 to 7 more years of residency, depending on which specialty you choose. So let me talk more about U.S. undergraduate studies. So in order to do medical school, you can pick any major you want. So I did economics, but I still went to medical school. I have friends who did music major, they did history or literature major. You can do any major as long as you choose to do the pre-medical courses. So there is requirements of 2 semesters biology, 2 semesters of chemistry, 1 semester orgo, 1 semester biochem, and 2 semesters of physics. So as long as you do the requirements, you can choose to do any major. And if you want to apply to U.S. medical school, you must take these pre-med courses in a U.S., UK, or Canadian university. So if you did this all in Thailand, then you would have to repeat it in one of these countries in order to apply to medical school in the U.S. So when you apply, you have to get your undergraduate bachelor's degree, and you have to do the pre-medical courses like I just talked about. But you also have to take the MCAT, which is the standardized exam, and then you have to write the essay and get letters of recommendations from your undergraduate professors. So these are the basic requirements to apply. And just in terms of the rankings of importance, so they really do look at your test score and your GPA. But if you see here, your major doesn't matter. So if you got a very good GPA in history, as long as you did well also in your pre-medical courses, that's very good. And then they look at your essay and your letters of recommendation. These are important. And then they also want you to do a lot of volunteering, research, and shadowing doctors on the side. So in the US, in addition to test scores, they look very much at your well-roundedness. So they want you to do other activities. So for me, example, I like to do running, so I've been running marathons, and I also have volunteered in Africa a couple of times. So a lot of times people like to show that you do other activities in addition to school. So here are just 3 types of different applicants. So this is the traditional applicant that you think of going to medicine. So somebody with a very high GPA, so in the US GPA is scored out of 4.0. This person majored in molecular biology in undergraduate. He did research in college, so he co-authored 2 paper publications with professors, and then he was president of the Harvard Cancer Society. So that is somebody that you think of in the traditional sense. But in the US, they want you to do any type of background as long as you have an interest in medicine. So we can have somebody that is a little bit more non-traditional. So you may have slightly lower GPA, but this person majored in history and literature. And then they spent 2 years after undergraduate teaching in South Africa, and then they were editor of the Health Policy Journal, and they are interested in medical humanities. So they're interested in writing about patients and medical studies in newspapers and journals. And then lastly, we have also military applicants. So people who worked in the US Army or US Navy can also attend US medical schools. So they graduate from military academy, and then they served in Iraq and Afghanistan during the wars, and they're interested in being a trauma surgeon. So you have many different types of applicants in the US. As long as you can tell a story about yourself, about why you want to be a doctor, that's the most important thing. Okay, so in total, there are 179 medical schools in the US. Most schools are what we call MD, so these are the traditional MD medical schools. We also have something called DO schools. They're much fewer. They're licensed to be a doctor, but some specialties they cannot perform. So some types of surgeries, DO degrees are not allowed to perform, but they're still considered to be doctors. Most people apply to around 15 to 25 schools. So in my case, I applied to 20 schools, and then you'll get interviews at around 5 to 15 schools. So I interviewed around 9 schools. So it really depends on the person. There is a lot of luck involved because medical school is very competitive. So it depends on who's reading your story, if they connect with what story you're telling. And then usually people will be accepted into about 2 to 3 schools, and then you can visit them and choose which one you want to go to. Okay, so in medical school, I told you there's 4 years. So in US medical school, this is the old curriculum. So usually you did 2 years of general science courses, like the biochemistry, anatomy, and then you took something called step 1. So this is our board exam. You took that after those basic science courses. Then you did, in year 3, you did the core clinical rotation. So you go into the hospital and do 1 month or 2 months of each of these rotations to choose which one you want to do. And then in your last year, which is what I'm doing, you do electives. So I did an elective now in Thailand because I want to do ophthalmology. And then during your 4th year, you apply for residency. So this is the traditional path. You do 2 years of classroom and 2 years of in the hospital work. All the classroom work is pass-fail. So this is a concept in the US where we want people to work together. So instead of having grades in the first 2 years, it's just pass-fail and 98% pass. So they really want you to just work together and collaborate. And then once you're in the hospital, then you get tested and have a little bit more grading system. But when you're doing the classroom work, they really want you to have kind of a group collaborative atmosphere. So this is the old curriculum. Now people are transitioning into a newer curriculum where you have less classroom time and more time in the hospital. So if you see here, instead of having 2 years in the classroom, you have only 1 or 1.5 years in the classroom. And then you still have your 1 year of your clinical rotations, but then you have much more time in the last 1.5 years. You get 6 months extra time to do research, clinical electives, and apply for residency. So this is the way that a lot of U.S. medical schools are going to. And something that is prevalent in the U.S. medical schools is something called the flipped classroom. So this is the old way where you have just lectures, you have kind of old, boring professors coming up here and everybody's kind of sleeping while they're, attending the lecture, not very interactive. So here we have actually at Harvard Medical School, we have 0 lectures now. So everything is small group based, and you see here, this is the professor here, and you have groups of 4. So the homework at night is to watch recorded lectures. Everybody has to watch the mandatory online lectures, but when you come into the classroom, you have case-based group problem-solving sets. So the professor will go around, and everything is done in small groups instead of having this lecture style. So now medical schools are based in this flipped classroom method because they really want you to engage and discuss. An important part of being a doctor is to be able to communicate with your patients, the parents of the children, other doctors. So it's not just about studying anymore, it's about your ability to communicate and work with teams. So this is the way that most U.S. medical schools have been going to. So I have some videos I can show. I can either show the videos or answer some questions first. Which one would you guys like to see?
I went to Harvard College for undergrad and I'm now a third-year medical student at Harvard Medical School. Typically, I start a day anywhere from 6 to 7:30. I'll wake up and basically head straight into the hospital. I'll often check on the patients that I'm working with and see how their night went, and then I join round, which is where we go with the whole team of the attendings, resident physicians, as well as medical students, sometimes nurses as well. We go and we see every patient, kind of tell their story, and figure out what the plan is for the rest of the day. The rest of the day kind of varies, honestly. Sometimes I'll go with the attendings to clinic, where I'll see patients in the outpatient setting. Sometimes, like right now I'm on my surgery rotation, I'll go to the operating room and see some really interesting cases. And then sometimes I'll stay on the floor of the residence and take care of the patients in the hospital, maybe do a little procedures there as well. It really varies what time you get home, depending on how busy it is. But once I'm home, I try and do a mix of studying and relaxing and preparing for the next day. So maybe I'll start by watching an episode of my favorite TV show, and then do a little bit of reading and practice questions for other tests. As a doctor, every day you're thinking about science to help patients, but you're also learning about people's stories and learning how to tell people's stories and advocate for them. So I really like kind of that combination of the two. So I think I want to go into pediatrics, which is taking care of little kids. I've always just loved interacting with kids, and I think it'll be really interesting to also learn how to interact with both the parents and the kids at the same time. And honestly, pediatric diseases are really, really interesting. Working with kids every day effective, and they do hilarious things.
Great. And you've worked with kids outside of
Much higher. So you invest in your education earlier, but then you can make more money later. Okay? So
ว่าที่คุณหมอถามหน่อยค่ะ โอเคcome here
I want to know why did you choose to go through Harvard?
So that's a good question. So my parents obviously wanted me to go. I really did not want to go to Harvard because it has a very strong stigma attached to the name. I kind of want to go to Princeton for undergraduate, but after visiting some of the undergraduates when I was after acceptance, I really liked the fact that Harvard had so many opportunities. So they have a lot of different clubs, great professors, and then they give you a lot of money for the summer. So I was able to travel to Uganda and Kenya to do volunteer and research work. I was able to travel to other countries as well. And so they really provide a lot of opportunities that other schools cannot give the same opportunities to. And I really love the city of Boston. Boston has many undergraduate colleges besides Harvard. So they have also MIT, Tufts, Boston University, Boston College. So there's many young students around, and it's a very nice city for young people to live in.
question students have more questions ไม่ถามเหรอลูกถามหน่อยลูกไม่ได้ and how do you come to Thailand is a scholarship from also Harvard
I got some funding from Harvard as well. There is an ophthalmologist at Harvard who has a connection with Content University. He comes here every year, and so he's been sending some Harvard students in the past. And so I heard very good things about Content, and so I came here, and I love it. So hopefully I can come back.
question you can ask them back if you want to yes because they all want to be a doctor scare them by asking them a question
So also another thing I didn't talk about. So you can do your medical school in the U.S. if you want to live in the U.S. and train to be a doctor in the U.S. But a lot of people also do their residency or fellowship training in the U.S. So both of these doctors did training in the UK. So a lot of Thailand doctors do 1 or 2 years abroad in the U.S. So you can really get that experience in the U.S. after you specialize. So if you become, ophthalmologist in Thailand and train through medical school here, you can do fellowship in the U.S. and that way you can understand the American medical school system, but then come back to Thailand and really help your own community and your own patients. So if you want to not spend the money to do the very expensive U.S. medical school, you can just do a fellowship program later on in your career.
คุณหมอให้คำตอบเพิ่มเติมตรงนี้ได้ไหมคะเพราะว่าที่คุณหมอหลายคนค่ะในนี้ค่ะเชิญค่ะค่ะเพราะว่าถ้ายังไม่อยากเรียนตอนนี้ตอนที่ไปฝึกงานอะไรประมาณนี้ค่ะ
ก็มีคำถามอะไรจะถามเพิ่มอีกไหมลูกนะครับเมื่อกี้ที่สเตฟนี่ก็บอกคือว่าเนื่องจากค่าใช้จ่ายในอเมริกาค่อนข้างแพงเราไม่จำเป็นต้องไปเรียนแพทย์ในอเมริกาก็ได้นะครับเรียนแพทย์ที่เมืองไทยแล้วก็ไปต่อผู้เชี่ยวชาญไปทำ resident training ที่อเมริกา 3-4 ปีหรือไปจบผู้เชี่ยวชาญที่เมืองไทยแล้วก็ไปต่อ fellowship training นะครับอาจารย์ที่คณะแพทยศาสตร์มาในเมืองไทยหลายคนก็ทำแบบนี้ไปจบแพทย์ที่เมืองไทยแล้วก็ต่อผู้เชี่ยวชาญเมืองไทยแล้วก็ไปต่อ fellowship training ที่ต่างประเทศนะครับถ้าเรากะจะเป็นแพทย์ที่คนไทยเนี่ยการเรียนแพทย์ในประเทศไทยจะเหมาะกับการทำงานมากกว่านะครับเพราะว่าแพทย์แต่ละประเทศเนี่ยโรคต่างๆก็แตกต่างกันนะครับถ้าจบแพทย์จากต่างประเทศในเวลาจะมาทำงานที่เมืองไทยก็ต้องมาสอบ license examination ซึ่งก็ไม่ง่ายนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นก็มีทางเลือกหลายอย่างนะครับมีคำถามอะไรอีกไหมครับอ๋อครับน้องพิมมีอะไร
เด็กๆมีคำถามอีกไหมคะลูกถ้าไม่มีจะปล่อยกลับห้องนะคะแต่ก่อนกลับเราจะต้องขอบคุณนะคะขอบคุณคุณหมอเชิญคุณหมอทั้งสองท่านนี้ค่ะขอบคุณให้เด็กๆขอบคุณนะคะเชิญค่ะโอเคนะคะเด็กๆคะขอบคุณด้วยการสวัสดีและปรบมือดังๆนะคะขอบคุณค่ะ thank you very much นะคะลูกขอบคุณค่ะแล้วก็ให้เด็กๆกลับห้องเลยนะคะเพื่อไม่ให้เสียเวลาการเรียนเชิญค่ะ
มาครับมาดิ